Welcome to this meeting of Council. The meeting will be live streamed and recorded, and the voices and images of those participating in the meeting may be captured as part of this recording. Indigo Shire Council acknowledges the original custodians of these lands. The people of the rivers and the hills have walked these lands for thousands of years as well as today, and we pay respect to the elders of the past and present. As councillors, we have all taken an oath to carry out our duties in the best interests of the people of Indigo Shire and to do this in a fair and impartial manner. We are all committed to exercising the council's powers and functions to the best of our skills and judgment. I'd like to just recognise that the International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia and Transphobia, known as Ida Hobbit, is observed annually on May the 17th. Ida Hobbit is a global day of action and awareness aimed at raising awareness of the issues faced by LGBTQIA+ individuals. It's also a chance to celebrate progress while acknowledging the ongoing need for equality and the fight against discrimination. Indigo Shire Council supports Ida Hobbit and hosts an annual rainbow flag raising ceremony. The event this year will be held on Wednesday the 14th of May, that's tomorrow, from 10:30 a.m. until 11:15 at the Lions Park in Rutherglen. And to support Ida Hobbit, we are wearing our rainbow pins tonight, and we're encouraging you to do the same thing and attend one of the many events that will be offered across the region. Before I ask if there are any apologies or leaves of absence, I will just refer to the fact that we have a councillor attending by Zoom tonight. So Councillor Landells is attending by Zoom. Just refer to our governance rules to confirm that is appropriate and being conducted in accordance with our governance rules. So Rule 26C, if a meeting is to be conducted wholly in person, a councillor may request to attend via electronic means in exceptional circumstances. The request is to be made in writing no less than 4 hours prior to the meeting start time. And Rule 26D3, a request to attend via electronic means needs to specify the reasons why the councillor is to attend via Zoom, and these will be noted in the minutes. So CEO, can I confirm that that has happened today?
Yes, Mayor Price, that was received well and truly early this morning with the reasons why, and all in accordance with governance rules.
Thank you for doing that, Councillor Landells. And I will just ask that you make sure that your camera stays on so that we can continue to observe your attendance at the meeting. And when we call for a vote, that you clearly raise your hand so that we can acknowledge that the vote has been taken.
Sorry, do you need me to confirm that?
No, sorry, Councillor Landells.
Yep, that's all fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So, CEO, I'll ask, are there any apologies and leaves of absence?
Now, Mayor Price.
Item 4 is declarations of conflict of interest. We have a few to go through. Councillor Dowsley, you have a declaration of conflict of interest you'd like to recognise?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I have a general conflict of interest with item 11.2, the 2025-26 draft budget, recommendation 1.
And that is a general conflict of interest, is that?
Yes, correct? General conflict of interest.
Thank you, Councillor Dowsley. I'll get you to confirm that conflict of interest again when we reach that item. And item 12.1, Get Active Indigo grants for 2025. I have a general conflict of interest with that item as I'm a member of a committee that has applied for one of those grants. Councillor Harvey, you also have a conflict of interest. Would you like to recognise that now?
I have a general conflict of interest with item 12.1, the grants, because I have a close family relationship with a member of one of the organizations that's applied for a grant. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. So similarly, we will leave the room for that item. And Councillor Dowsley will assume the chair. Item 5 is open forum, and we have 2 sets of questions submitted tonight. The first set of questions is from Charles Mitchell. Can I confirm that Charles is in the gallery tonight? Thank you. Question 1, I am not aware of the Council's Essential Services Commission application for a higher rate being provided to the public. Will you now make that document available to the public as part of your commitment to a high level of consultation and transparency as per your Council policies and publish the document on Council's website? Director of Planning Corporate Services, Greg Pinkerton.
G'day, Charles. This whole process is a public process, so it's all published on the Essential Services Commission website, but we'll pop a link on the Indigo Shire website, make it easy to find.
Thank you, Director. Second set of questions tonight is from Robin McLeish, and I can confirm that Robin's in the gallery tonight. Thank you. Introductory statement for question 1. The grant submission for the $11.5 million Rutherglen Silo Arts Precinct project was unsuccessful after council had spent $125,000 in consultants' fees to prepare the business case and concept. Question 1, can one of our councillors tell us why the grant submission failed? This information could improve future grant applications. Robin, given that I can see that the question is directed to one of our councillors, I'll say that you're so right to say that any information could improve our future grant applications. That's why we make sure that that information goes to the right people, which is our staff that write those applications. And so we can confirm that that's happened, and I'll pass to the CEO for any commentary about why the grant submission might have failed. CEO Trevor Reno.
Thanks, Robin, for the question through you, Mayor Price. I don't actually like the word failed. Lots of these grant applications are really well oversubscribed, and it's just a question of meeting the criteria and being the best on the day. This particular one was a Growing Regions Fund grant application. It was lodged by Tourism Northeast, which was a larger scope project covering 2 different councils. And it was proposing to utilise the state government Murray Mountains Rail Trail Enhancement Project grant to leverage further federal grant funds for a number of projects, including progressing the Rutherglen Silo Arts Precinct project. The Growing Regions Fund evaluation team provided feedback that it was a highly competitive and oversubscribed process. And at the time of the application, the Rutherglen project had progressed through feasibility and concept design phases. So as part of the enhancement project, the precinct concept work has been progressed to detailed design with due diligence works completed. And what that means then, it makes this project shovel ready, so it can be used over and over again for different grant funds that may come up in the future.
The introductory statement for question 2, Tourism Northeast Strategic Plan for 2016-17 to 2018-19 included the following statements from their CEO. TEO is a not-for-profit incorporated association. T&E has a strategy to maintain the financial stability of the organisation with a key performance indicator that reports net profit every quarter and a target to maintain a positive net profit and a healthy reserve. In 2024, T&E repeated their claim to be an independent not-for-profit organisation, even though their financial report identified term deposits of $3 million, which may have come from retained earnings and should be available to finance new projects. The second question, our CEO is our representative on the T&E Management Committee and can clarify the reasons behind the initial not-for-profit claim for an entity that set profit generation as a key performance indicator, and again now claims to be a not-for-profit entity with a financial report for 2024 that identifies term deposits of $3 million. Also, what is the corporate structure of T&E that allows it to refuse freedom of information requests and request to the Ombudsman for details of grant applications that will utilise the taxes that we pay for essential services? CEO Trevor Reno.
Through you, Mayor Price. Thank you, Robin, again for the question. I think one of the misnomers that are out there are that not-for-profits actually can't make profits. The reality is that all organisations like those, like not-for-profits, will not end each year with a zero balance. They'll always make some money or lose some money. There'll always be a surplus, there'll always be a deficit. I don't have the Google definition right in front of me or anything else like that, but generally a not-for-profit means that that organisation does not exist for the purpose of making a profit and then returning the proceeds of that profit to individuals outside of the organisation. Basically means any surplus stays within the organisation and is used for the benefit of the organisation, and that no one outside of the organisation profits from their existence. That's just my layperson's definition there, Mayor Price. So it is perfectly normal for T&E to describe itself as a not-for-profit because all its funds stay within the organisation and used for the benefit of that organisation on behalf of other councils. And if there is a business plan that says that it's aiming to make a surplus, that surplus will be retained within the organisation and used down the track to then fund projects or things like that for the benefit of those members that are in that organisation.
Thank you, CEO. Those are the,
Sorry, thank you. Thank you, Robin.
Robin.
Can I just take that one on notice? I'll need to do a bit of research to find for you the exact parts of the FOI Act and things like that that precludes T&E from partaking in FOI requests. I'm not sure just offhand what that is, but I'll find it out for you.
thanks for pointing that out, Robin. Sorry that we just didn't recognise that for a moment. That brings us to the end of open forum. We've only got the 2 sets of questions submitted tonight. We'll now go to item 6, community and council achievements. And council has asked me to make the following, to recognise Dr. Helen Haynes and congratulate her on being returned as the independent federal member for Indi. In thanking the electorate, Dr. Haynes says she's committed to addressing housing, cost of living, better healthcare, childcare, regional infrastructure and other action on climate change. These are the very issues that top our advocacy priorities, and we look forward to continuing to work with Dr. Haynes to ensure that our voice is heard and that rural and regional areas are not forgotten. Do any other councillors have any community and council achievements? No? We'll go to item 7, condolences. Do any councillors have any condolence motions to raise? Councillor Horn.
It's with a sense of shock and great sadness that I bring to the attention of Council the tragic passing of Ms. Kylie Sanders, a former long-time resident of Rutherglen. Kylie had more recently been living in Yarrawonga, which is where on Friday 25th of April, she was killed while rendering assistance to a neighbour during a violent domestic altercation near her home. It was perfectly in character for her to try to de-escalate the dangerous situation she became aware of, as she was very well known for her kindness, sensibility and commitment to helping others. Her life was taken at just 46 years of age, and her selfless action and tragic death have been deeply affected by all who knew her. She was the beloved daughter of Gary and Dawn Saunders of Rutherglen and sister to Scott and Nicole. Along with her family and a vast network of friends, Kylie was also will be remembered and sadly missed by those whose lives she touched through her work as a pathology nurse. No family should ever have to receive such devastating news, and the communities of Rutherglen, Corowa, Yarrawonga and beyond join the Sanders family in grieving this senseless loss with profound sadness. Kylie's passing has left a deep void and disbelief that this vibrant, loving and spirited presence has been torn from us. She'll be long remembered for her bravery, compassion and spirit. On behalf of Council, we extend our heartfelt condolences to the Sanders family and all those affected by this heartbreaking loss. I ask that a letter under seal be sent to her parents and siblings.
Thank you, Councillor Horn. CEO, we don't need a motion for that, so we're just making sure that's accepted. Thank you, CEO. Councillor Landells, you also have a condolence motion to raise tonight.
Yes, I do. It's for Phil Berkner from who's a resident of Yakandanda, passed away on 13th of April 2025, aged 79 years old. And Phil was a very active member of many community groups in Yakandanda, including the Yakandanda Lions Club, Yakandanda Community Centre, where he was a life member, and the Yakandanda Museum. And I believe he also spent a couple of years on the Shire's Economic Development Advisory Committee around 2017 to 18. I've had the pleasure of volunteering and working within the Yakandanda community since 2010. I first met Phil in 2012 through the local radio station Indigo FM. and he was one of the founding members, one of the 3 founding members of Indigo FM. He also held a number of key executive roles from 2010 to 2015, and he fundraised extensively through the Yackandandah community in those first few years to raise funds to purchase essential equipment. Yackandandah is a community characterised by innovation, grassroots energy, natural beauty, intergenerational care, celebration of the arts, and integration of its many community interest groups. And I think Phil was a great example of how one person's passion for an investment in his community can create that ripple effect that creates such strong and vibrant communities, which we enjoy here in Indigo Shire. I'd like to just send our condolences to Phil's family and for his passing.
Thank you, Councillor Landels. Do any other councillors have any condolences to note for the meeting tonight? No. Item 8 is confirmation of minutes from previous meetings. The recommendation is that the minutes of the council meeting held on the 29th of April 2025, as published on council's website, be confirmed. Do I have somebody to move that? Moved Councillor Harvey, seconded Councillor Horn. Councillor Harvey, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you.
Councillor Horn, would you like to speak to the motion? No. Did anyone else want to make a comment or ask a question about the minutes? If not, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Councillor Landels, just for the purpose of the meeting, I will get you to raise your physical hand, just in case that's not noted as part of the technology. I'm not sure that would be, but thank you. I did recognise that you raised that hand before. Item 9 is business arising from the previous minutes, and that lists the questions that were taken on notice at open forum for the 29th of April council meeting. Councillor Dowsley?
Thank you, Mayor. Question for the CEO. Can we please have an update on the Mayday Hills childcare and kindergarten facility lease renewal process?
Can I just say that I have a conflict of interest, general conflict of interest in this matter, so I will leave the room while you discuss the answer.
Thank you, Councillor. So, Councillor Dowsley, you're seeking an update from the CEO, is that correct?
Yes, please. Just noting that there's no agenda item on this topic at tonight's meeting, but there are some business arising items here that refer to that topic. So I think now would be an opportune time to just provide a brief update on where we're at with that particular item.
Through you, Mayor Price, and thank you, Councillor Dowsey, for the question. We did 2 weeks ago, we did have the unusual situation where a previous expression of interest process was, I guess, halted by the successful applicant withdrawing from that process. So given that occurred just 2 weeks ago, and staff needed to, I guess, reassess the process and come back to council with a recommended alternate approach. It'll just take a little bit of time to do that. There's a few loose ends we need to follow up on. And given that tonight's budget night, so it made the May meeting just 2 weeks after the April meeting, there wasn't enough time to do that and get on the agenda papers and things like that. So my hope is that we will have work done in time for the June meeting with a recommendation to council on a process going forward, adjusting for the fact that the airway process was basically halted by the withdrawal by the successful applicant. The mayor, myself and the staff member met with both boards last Friday to give them an update on how the process is going. So they've had that feedback last week.
Thank you, CEO. We'll now get Councillor Shepherd back into the room. Thank you. Okay, now we'll move to item 10, petitions. CEO, can I confirm there's no petitions?
Neil, Mayor Price.
Item 11 is planning and corporate services, and item 11.1 is the draft community vision and council plan 2025 to 2029. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council endorses the draft community vision and council plan 2025 to 2029 for public exhibition for a period of 21 days. 2, invites written submissions on the draft community vision and council plan for 2025 to 2029. And 3, receives a further report at the June council meeting to consider submissions and adopt the final community vision and council plan 2025 to 2029. Could I have somebody to move that? Moved Councillor Dowsley, seconded Councillor Harvey. Councillor Dowsley.
Thank you, Mayor. Firstly, I would like to acknowledge the amount of work that's gone into producing this draft community vision and council plan document. Both of those documents are key strategic documents required under the Local Government Act, but more importantly, they will guide council staffing and budget allocations and our strategic direction for the next 4 years. So I strongly encourage members of the public and the community to please read those documents and provide feedback. If you have a project or a strategy or some other initiative that you want to bring to council's attention to be considered as part of the program for the next 4 years, then this is your prime opportunity to do that. So please provide feedback in the next 21 days.
Councillor Harvey, would you like to speak as seconder?
I just want to reinforce what Councillor Dowsley said. The councillors and the council staff have spent a great deal of time on this, and now it's the opportunity for the community, and I would encourage the community to take up this offer to give their input into it and comment upon it before we adopt the final version. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Councillor Shepherd.
Yes, we spent 2 days really as councillors looking at this folder. I'll hold it up just for our councillors to see. It was full of documents and mainly it was feedback from community, from councillors and from our Indigo Shire staff on questions around what they saw for our future. So from the community point of view, there were 284 people actively contributed with 260 surveys submitted, 121 contributions to the ideas board and 41 pins dropped on an interactive map. And having read through all of these, we really came up with, so what did we hear? And if I mean, it's all here in this document we've got in front of us, but I just wanted to go back to the raw data that we were given on the 2 days we were discussing it. So we heard that the community, and this is all of us, the councillors, the staff and the community, core infrastructure and essential services emerged as the highest priority across all stakeholder groups. That was number one. There's a strong agreement on the need to address the infrastructure maintenance backlog, particularly roads, drainage and public amenities, while ensuring financial sustainability in a rate-capped environment. 3, environmental sustainability and climate resilience feature prominently in all feedback, with strong support for proactive climate adaptation, environmental protection and renewable energy leadership. Number 4, strategic challenges consistently identified, including housing affordability and availability, youth retention, ageing population needs, and economic diversification. There is clear recognition of the need to balance tourism growth with community amenity and to support local businesses. The potential UNESCO World Heritage listing is seen as a significant opportunity that requires careful planning. The next one was community engagement and governance emerged as critical priorities, with stakeholders emphasising the importance of meaningful consultation, transparent decision-making and practical outcomes. The feedback indicates support for the existing strategic themes, but suggests they could be more ambitious and action-oriented. Financial sustainability and responsible resource management were consistently highlighted as fundamental to achieving community aspirations. And the consolidated feedback points to a shared vision for a shire that successfully balances preservation with progress, maintains high quality essential services, and leads in environmental sustainability. So I think our staff, 2.5 of them, have done an amazing job in taking that raw feedback from all of us and creating this document that we're now sending back out to you for your review and feedback. But basically those criteria that you told us about and we agreed with you are all part of this council plan.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Burke?
Yes, thanks, Mayor Price. This is my first community vision and plan, and I must say I was very impressed with the quality and the detail of the work done by the council officers. There's an enormous amount of work that went into it by the staff, so thanks to everyone involved in that. And there was obviously a lot of work for us as councillors to go through the enormous detail. There were plenty of opportunities to get the views of the community, and they're captured in this report, but I would have liked to have seen more people's input into the plan. So I'd like to encourage everyone in the community to actively get involved and provide feedback on this vision and plan for the next 4 years. It's a very important document that will guide the council's direction over the next 4 years. So it's a critical opportunity to have your say on the future of our towns, services and priorities. Your feedback will help make this plan reflect the needs, challenges and aspirations of our residents. And if there's anything that we missed when we went through this, we want to know about it. So please tell us. I strongly encourage everyone to read the draft and make a submission during this public exhibition period. This can be done by speaking to council officers at the customer service centres or going online to the engaged Indigo section of the Shire website. I commend the motion to the chamber.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Landells.
Yes, thank you. I would like to concur with the other councillors that have already spoken about this item in terms of the volume and the quality of work that has been undertaken by staff. And I'd also just like to reiterate that it's a 21-day comment period, feedback period, which is a little bit shorter than most of council's feedback periods. So that being a little bit shorter means it's important that people get onto this pretty quickly over the next week or two. So that's all I would like to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Landells. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion?
I
Councillor
think
Hall?
it's all been said. Thank you.
Great. I'd like to agree with what all my fellow councillors have said throughout this process. I was really pleased to see that the community feedback is so well understood and interpreted for us to be able to engage with on that day. It is so well understood because the staff are receiving that feedback not only throughout this process but constantly, and so for that work to be done at the outset is so useful and gives us immediate confidence. I've been really pleased to see how this new council has engaged with this process and made it their own, and really insisted that the community is at the heart of this community vision and the council plan. And lastly, I'd like to make a comment for anyone who perhaps hasn't engaged with a document like this before, and we ask you to do so. For a start, it's a beautiful document to look through. The pictures are amazing. Our Shire, there's beautiful photography of our Shire. There's some great infographics for people to engage with, and I think that that should encourage people to do just that. And as Councillor Burke said, we really welcome your feedback because this is, as the council plan is called, it's one Shire, many communities, and this is our path forward for Council Plan 25 to 29. So this is the point of time that we'd like to hear from you on that. If you've never engaged with the document before, we'd really encourage you to do so. I'll go back to Councillor Dowsley. Would you like to sum up?
No, thank you, Mayor. I think we've all said it.
Thank you. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 11.2 is the 2025-26 draft budget. The item is for decision, and before I read the recommendations tonight, there are two recommendations associated with this one item. CEO, I might just get you to explain why that is.
Thanks, Mayor Price. Can I also, just before I do that, can I also table for council a slightly different version of the budget, which is got all identical content, but just some slight formatting changes? So I can table that, and the version that goes on the website tonight, I guess, or tomorrow, will have that updated formatting version in it. As far as administration goes, councillors and community, invariably the nature of local government is that the councillors put their hand up for council are often involved with lots of other community-based activities. So a budget's made up of hundreds and hundreds, sometimes thousands of line items, and invariably some councillors will have a connection with some line items in the budget. And so in order to avoid having councillors having to not participate in the important budget discussion on the night, what we can do administratively is where a councillor has a specific connection to a specific line item, we can actually pull that line item out and be heard first with that particular councillor out of the room. Then the council can make a decision one way or the other whether that line item's included in the budget. Once that's decided, then that councillor no longer has a conflict in that decision's already been made by a council without them in attendance. As is the case tonight, we're recommending that because of a declaration earlier on in the process, one of our councils has a connection with the Yackandandah Public Toilet Project, which is separately listed in the capital plan.
So CEO, to confirm, Councillor Dowsley will leave for the first recommendation as it's something that she has a conflict of interest with, but at the conclusion of that recommendation, she'll return for the second recommendation, which is the budget.
Exactly right.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll now go to the first recommendation. Councillor Dowsley, would you like to declare your conflict of interest?
Thank you, Mayor. I have a general conflict of interest with this item because prior to being elected to council, I contributed to a Tiny Towns grant application for the Yackandandah Chamber of Commerce regarding funding a refresh of Yackandandah's high street public toilets.
Thank you, Councillor. We'll ask you to leave the room and invite you back in at the completion of this recommendation. The recommendation is that council approves the High Street Yackandandah public toilet project contained in the attached budget documents. Can I have somebody to move that? Moved Councillor Shepherd, seconded Councillor Horn. Councillor Shepherd, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes. Isn't it great to see someone getting voted onto council who was already proactive beforehand in getting us grants? That's fantastic. So the grant is for $34,000 and council will be putting in 10,000 and then contributions 3,000. I'm not sure who that is, but the whole cost is $47,000 and that will be a great addition to Yackandandah and great to see it in the budget.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Horn, would you like to speak as seconder?
I think a good public toilet is always well appreciated, and it's certainly the case with this particular item.
Thank you, Councillor Horn. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Can we please invite Councillor Dowsley back? So recommendation 2 for item 11.2, the 2025-26 draft budget, is that Council 1 notes that A, the attached draft budget contains the following allocations: $8.305 million of capital works, including $4.6 million for new, renewed and upgraded roads, bridges and pathways, $100,000 for year one actions arising from the new council plan for 2025 to 2029, $90,000 for streetscape beautification works, $40,000 to plan for the future of the Shire's tourism in the context of increasing visitation and future World Heritage bid, $2,000 increase in road maintenance, $25,000 for trail maintenance. B, council is currently awaiting the result of its rate cap rate cap increase application with the Essential Services Commission, ESC, to complete a revenue neutral transfer, the environmental management contribution to general rates as described in this report. The draft budget assumes that this ESC application will be successful. 2, endorses the attached documents for public exhibition. A, the draft budget. B, the draft 10-year financial plan. C, the draft revenue and rating plan. D, the draft operating income and expense by service. E, the draft capital works commentary. 3, authorises the Chief Executive Officer to give public notice of the preparation of the draft budget. 4, places the endorsed documents on public exhibition for a period of 21 days from Wednesday the 14th of May to close of business Wednesday the 4th of June. 5, invites any person wishing to provide feedback on the exhibited documents to do so prior to the 5 p.m. the 4th of June 2025. 6, considers the community feedback along with any recommended budget changes arising from the feedback at the June ordinary meeting of Council on the 24th of June 2025. And 7, considers the updated 2024-25 budget at the June ordinary meeting of Council on the 24th of June 2025. Do I have somebody to move that? Moved Councillor Landells, seconded Councillor Burke. Councillor Landells.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, I want to thank Council's finance team, as we've done with similar to the council plan. It's been an enormous amount of work go on to prepare the budget and the associated other documents that go with it. And I'd like to really encourage the community to look closely at the draft budget, which alongside the council plan is undergoing a 21-day comment period from tomorrow. It's been largely based on the year one goals of the council plan. And please consider allocations for works and projects that you would like to see included. It's very much a draft plan, a draft budget. As stated above, there are some new projects proposed from priority projects in council plans. But a few things I just wanted to refer to. There's a $100,000 allocation for new council plan projects to resource year one action plans from the council plan, and which, as we have just heard, is going through its own draft plan feedback phase. So once that's completed, there's an allocation there to go towards some projects out of that plan. The thing I would say about council is council, I think, has such an extensive suite of place plans, master plans, and resilience plans and various others. And it's always quite tricky to balance up how we get those projects into budgets when the financial reality is that funds are very tight. Now, there was page 78 of the agenda refers to a report that was done last year, the Victorian Legislative Council Economy and Infrastructure Committee report. It's called Local Government Funding and Services 2024. And just a few findings there was that councils face increased asset renewal costs if they do not prioritise early and ongoing renewal in an asset's life cycle. So I think historically, some councils have maybe thought, oh, we could extend those renewal projects by, put the timelines out by a couple of years or things like that. But in actual fact, if you do that, you run the risk of having much bigger costs down the track. There's also a lot of challenges around providing, delivering infrastructure projects in recent years. There's been big rises in labour costs and materials. There's for a small shire like Indigo Shire, we've got quite a large geographic footprint and comparatively small rate base. That becomes a real challenge. And also extreme weather events driven by climate change. They are occurring more and more regularly, and that puts significant pressure on councils. So just they're just a few points that are made on page 78 of the agenda. But other than that, I'd like to congratulate the staff that have put in the time and effort to get the draft to this stage.
Thank you, Councillor Landels. Councillor Burke, would you like to speak as seconder?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Price. The one thing that I did want to just highlight is that I note in the revenue rating plan that there is a financial hardship policy. Now, those of us who are on farmland at the moment, we know that we're in a drought and we have high costs of hay and feed, and we're all very aware of that. And this hardship policy is available for ratepayers if you need it, and that's just something I'd just like to highlight, and it's something that people should consider.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Shepherd.
This is probably one of the tightest budgets I've sort of been involved in, really. There's not a lot of wriggle room, and I think Councillor Landel's reference to those findings, of which there are 47 we've got listed here, really shows how we're, as a small regional council with a large number of important towns and infrastructure and buildings and pools and all the other things that we have, that we are facing difficult times really in with the rate cap being as it is. We are really stuck back in 2016, I think, when the rate cap was applied, whereas the CPI has just been taking us straight up, as well as the cost of everything has gone up since then as well. So we are, like, it's a very fiscally sound budget, but it will be difficult for us to do some of the amazing things that we have pinpointed in the council plan without the assistance of grant funding from the state and federal government, of which we've been very lucky, I think, because of our great staff being able to apply, and we've got lots of things shovel ready, so it's really easy for us to respond when a grant does come up. But we will be relying more on grants, and as part of this budget, we are looking at doing an in-service within our own council, when it won't be getting consultants. We're going to be looking at how we are going to strategise for going forward in our financial plan, so a long-term financial plan strategy, and all of these findings and all of our past budgets will inform us on what we're going to be able to do for the next 10 years. And a community will be involved in looking at prioritise. We're going to have to prioritise our spending, and so some of our we've got important services that we have to maintain, but some of them we're going to have to be looking at. So sobering, really. The other issue that I'd just like to raise is, with COVID, the state government introduced legislation that limited council's debt collection for 2 years, which was, of course, appropriate. People were struggling. But that's being lifted in a couple of months, and we have a debt now of $4 million in rates owed to the council. Now, that's not going to get us out of any holes or anything, but it would be useful if we could have that $4 million as part of our budget. That's going to need delicate, I imagine, working with the community on getting those rates back from community members. But really, the rest of the Shire has been holding the financial responsibility, and that $4 million needs to come back to us. So that's another challenge we are facing. And the other probably important thing that we need to explore is the waste levy. Now, I could explain this, and it will look like mud. So I'm very happy with the process, as I think of the other councillors. We've been told that and shown that this is a rates neutral application. If I could ask our Greg Pinkerton to explain this so that the community understand what this means.
Director of Planning and Corporate Services, Greg Pinkerton.
Yeah, thank you. So in June last year, council passed a resolution to transfer the current waste levy into general rates. That was a response to the Minister for Local Government's guidance from late 2023 that constituted best practice. So since that resolution, council's made the application to the Essential Services Commission. It's currently being assessed. One of the really important things that's part of their assessment is that it's no windfall gain. So council does not collect any more rates or charges from the community. It's just transferred from two separate fees into one. So the outcome of that, if that is successful, is that council will receive the same as council would have received if it stuck to the 3% rate cap and the waste levy. Still waiting to hear back from the Essential Services Commission, and we've been advised that council will find the outcome of that by the end of this month. But as written in the recommended resolution, the budget has been written as though that has been successful. If it's not, we'll just move it back to the other line. It won't change anything in the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Would any other councillor like to make a comment? Councillor Horn?
Presenting the annual budget is one of the most serious responsibilities we hold. But it's not just about numbers, and it's certainly not about one group, one postcode, or one project. It's about values, it's about priorities, and above all, it's about our commitment to the whole Shire, a region made up of a diverse, growing community group, each with different needs and aspirations. We're under increasing pressure. Cost shifting from other levels of government and a state-imposed cap on how much we can raise through rates limits what we can do, even as demand grows. That means we have to make every dollar count. No one can predict the future, but we can shape how we respond to it. And that includes how we make decisions and how we include the community in making them thoughtfully and fairly. That's why it's so concerning to see community engagement declining. Last year, the number of people who responded to our pre-budget survey dropped from 315 to just 87. That's not the direction we want to go. We're here to live up to our stated vision, to work with our communities to secure a healthy, sustainable and progressive future for all. We want that to be more than just words. We want it to be something people can see in how we listen, how we consult, and how we act. So we're working to improve the ways people can stay informed, understand the process, and have their say respectively and constructively. Even when feedback is challenging, it's valuable because it helps us strike the balance between what's needed, essential services, maintenance, infrastructure, and what's wanted, the projects and improvements we'd all love to see when resources allow. This budget is about more than figures. It's about making sure our community is not only supported, but genuinely heard. Please don't waste this opportunity to have your say. Remember, sometimes numbers speak louder than words.
Thank you, Councillor Horn. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Dowsley.
Thank you. I'm deeply committed to turning the vision and priorities outlined in our strategic documents and master plans into real, tangible outcomes. Equally, I'm passionate about ensuring fairness in how project funding is distributed across our Shire, and I'd hope to make a meaningful impact on this from day one. Perhaps I was naive, but the reality has turned out to be much more complex. Like many councils across Victoria, Indigo Shire faces significant financial pressures that limit what we can achieve within our budget. While it may seem that the Shire has recently delivered several transformative projects like the Indigo Epic, Rutherglen Loops and Chiltern Hub, it's important to note that these have predominantly been funded through external grants. This year's budget is heavily constrained by rising costs, as Councillor Landells mentioned, urgent building maintenance needs, and commitments made by the previous council, largely items outside of my control or influence. As a result, I endorse tonight's draft budget with a sense of disappointment. I'm frustrated that we can't deliver more for our community, and I share the concern that project expenditure isn't as balanced across the Shire as it could be. But moving forward, I'll be focusing on improving this process for the remainder of my term. Specifically, I'll be pushing for the development of a more detailed 4-year delivery program to ensure we provide better visibility for our community moving forward.
Thank you, Councillor Dowsley. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? I'd just like to say this conversation is being echoed amongst our counterparts. There is, as is being heard by all of the examination into financial sustainability of local government at a state level, at a federal level, with individual councils taking it on themselves, with news today that Hepburn Shire has been approved for a 7% rate cap. There are so many conversations happening at the moment about the financial sustainability of local governments. And the conversation is similar to what we're having at Indigo as well, in that staff can bring us a balanced budget. And that's what we ask. And we ask for them to meet the competing needs of the community, which is lots of aspiration, but also maintaining amenity and the livability of our council. I think we've managed to strike that balance again in this budget, and I acknowledge the things that other councillors have said, that we are under tight constraints. We are very heavily grant reliant, and some of those grants for some of the things that we're asking for aren't reflected in state and federal government priorities, and we continue to advocate on some of those things. So again, echoing the comments of my fellow councillors, please engage with this budget. Please give us your feedback. Please help us with what you might like to see in it, and what broader advocacy we can provide to the federal and state government, because we know that we deliver some really core services for our communities, and we need to continue to do so. But we are more and more constrained. I'll go back to you, Councillor Landels. Would you like to sum up?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Price. I think there's some excellent points that other councillors have made. We certainly are working under a lot of constraints, but we did look as a council group at what things we could put into the budget. For example, there's 90,000 there for improving streetscapes, and that's across several towns. And a lot of that comes out of the place plans and resilience plans that have been done over the last few years. Another one, I guess people out there in the community would probably be keen to know, how is council doing things more effectively, tightening the belt where they can. And I think one example is the tourism strategy that's being undertaken in-house. And so it's probably being done at a lot lower cost than it perhaps normally would be. We've got some outstanding staff in that area, and they've taken that challenge on board. So I think that's really commendable. But again, it's a short period. It's 21 days from tomorrow. So just encourage everyone to get out there, and let's try and picking up on Councillor Horn's point. There were 89 people, I think, responded to the last council budget. We'd certainly like to get a lot more than that, to understanding it is a draft at this point in time. So it's over to the community to give us their thoughts and ideas for projects they'd like to see in there.
Thank you, Councillor Landels. I'll put it to the vote now. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 11.3 is the April 2025 Finance Report. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council accepts the April 2025 Finance Report. Do I have somebody to move that? Moved Councillor Shepherd, seconded Councillor Harvey. Councillor Shepherd?
So this is the 10th month of the financial year, and we're showing a favourable result compared with our year-to-date forecast. But that's, as we can look at the variances in this report, they will, by the end of the 12 months, mainly come together and align with the end of year forecast, hopefully.
Thank you, councillor Shepherd. Councillor Harvey, would you like to speak as seconder?
I think councillor Shepherd has summed it up. Thank you.
Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? No? If not, I'll go back to you, councillor Shepherd. Would you like to sum up? No? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 12 is Community and Economic Development, and item 12.1 is the Get Active Indigo grants for 2025. At this point, I'd like to recognise that I have a general conflict of interest with this item, as I am a committee member with one of the applicants to this grants program. So I will leave the room and Councillor Dowsley will take the chair. Before I do that, I'll just ask Councillor Harvey to also recognise your conflict of interest.
Yeah, I have a material conflict of interest with item 12.1, Get Active Indigo grants. As a close family member is on one of the committees applying for a grant.
Thank you. The recommendation that Council 1 receives the 2025 Get Active Indigo Grants Assessment Panel Recommendation Report, and 2 endorses the distribution of funds as recommended by the Assessment Panel as follows. Albury Wodonga Orienteering Club, $2,500. Beechworth Pickleball Club, $4,000. Allens Flat Tennis Club, $3,600. Beechworth Health Service, $5,000. Rutherglen Wine Bottle Committee of Management, $600. Beechworth Croquet Club, $1,000. Rutherglen Football Netball Club, $2,500. Border Triathlon Squad, $5,000. Chiltern Auskick and Net Set Go, $2,500. Kiewa Valley Bowling Club, $800. And lastly, Drop In and Take Off Incorporated, $2,500. Do I have someone to move the motion? Thank you, Councillor Burke. And do I have someone to second the motion? Thank you, Councillor Horn. Councillor Burke, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I suppose the best thing about when I see these grants is that there's a strong spread of activities and community reach right across the Shire. I'd make special mention of the Kiewa Valley Bowling Club. Their $800 grant is for the Barefoot Bowls event, and it's an annual event. It's a great event for the whole community, and I'd like to recognise former councillor Peter Croucher for his tireless work on this successful, and it's a very inclusive annual event. And we actually have a really good time, and it's for the whole Kiewa Tangam community. So it's so for those in Tangam who weren't there, roll up next year. We need a few more teams. It'll always be good. Also, I'd like to encourage unsuccessful applicants on this process and new community groups to apply next year. These grants foster stronger, healthier and more connected communities. And finally, thanks to the Independent Assessment Panel and council officers in assessing the applicants, I commend the motion to the chamber.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. Councillor Horn, would you like to speak to the motion as seconder?
This year's funding round has attracted a high number of applicants from right across the Shire. Among the diverse projects receiving support are 3 Come and Try programs, including orienteering, croquet and triathlons. Other successful applications include a new pickleball competition in Beechworth, a Shire-wide skating program, community barefoot bowls in Kiewa, and tennis coaching on Allens Flat. As part of the implementation of Indigo Shire Council's Active Indigo Recreation Plan 2018 to 2026, a community-focused grants program was created to encourage and enable residents of Indigo Shire to get more active more often. Projects that have been recommended for funding in this round include purchase of equipment for a series of come and try days that are open to all ages, genders and abilities, promotion of existing campaigns and events such as the park run, walk and ride to school days, local running clubs and groups. Grants will be used to deliver community consultations to better understand local needs. Credentials, that's the word I'm looking for. Sorry, get my tongue organised. Credentialed coaching, purchase of games, hobby equipment, bocce, quoits, jumbo games such as chess and drafts, also purchasing of bowls for barefoot lawn bowls, croquet mallets, football and netball equipment, and support for the recently established Beechworth Pickleball Club. Pickleball apparently is the fastest growing sport in the world, and this grant will be used to support equipment purchases and providing coaching. I might have a go at it myself. It sounds great.
Thank you, councillor Horn. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? I'll go to councillor Landells first.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Dowsley. So I'm one of the councillors on this advisory committee. I'd just like to give a little bit of insight about this advisory committee and the work that they do. They take quite a there's a few professional people on there from, for example, Beechworth Health Service and also Indigo North Health have representatives on there, and Sport Northeast also provide a lot of input to this particular advisory committee. And we have one of our stalwarts from Indigo Shire Grants Committees, Gunya's Alan Pleitner. He's on this committee, and he's I think, and Alan would probably be about the most professional of all of them because he goes through every application extremely thoroughly and lines it up with council goals and values and the criteria of the funding program, etc. So it's just really wonderful to have such a great group of people looking at making these recommendations. And just, I suppose I would just touch on what other people have said about there's a really wide range of active programs from triathlons, orienteering, tennis, Auskick, pickleball, etc. I think this grant program is fairly new. I think it would be under 10 years old. It was came about through Indigo's, our active Indigo Recreation Plan 2018 to 26, and designed to encourage and enable residents of Indigo Shire to be more active more often.
Thank you, councillor Landells. No? Okay, so if there's no other comments, we'll go back to councillor Burke. Would you like to sum up?
Yes, thanks, Deputy Mayor. I suppose the other thing that we should acknowledge here is that whilst it's in budgetary terms, we've just signed off on the budget, but in budgetary terms, it's for $30,000 is not a lot of money for the total, expenditure of the council. But there's probably these grants have probably touched over 1,000 people through all the communities who are involved, and it's something that sometimes things that look little, look minor, can actually make a big difference. And I just once again just congratulate everyone who's involved in the assessment process, and obviously all those who put in for the grants, for the effort that goes into it. It's all, and they're all voluntary, I know that. So that's just another active engagement that we have with the community, which is good.
Excellent, thank you. So now we'll go to the vote. So all those in favour? Carried unanimously. We'll get the others back in the room, thanks.
Item 12.2 is the swimming pool operations contract extension for 2025-26. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council enters into a one-year contract extension with Belgravia Leisure Pty Ltd with the contract price of $747,463 ex-GST for the operation of Indigo Shire Council's 5 swimming pools for the 2025-26 season. Can I have somebody to move that?
I'll move that motion.
Moved councillor Burke, seconded councillor Harvey. Councillor Burke.
Thank you, Mayor Price. With this motion, we're voting to keep working with Belgravia to run our pools for one more year while we figure out a plan for the future. A few people have asked me, why do we outsource the management of such important assets? And when you look at the price of this, you can understand why people ask that question. Well, you only have to look at the bureaucracy in managing these assets. And in the report, it was detailed that we have there are 35 different standards, safety guidelines and acts of parliament to comply with. So it's best to let the experts have that oversight, and that is an expensive exercise. As detailed in this report, these pools were built in the post-Olympics era. That's not the Sydney Olympics, it was the Melbourne Olympics. So that was back in 1956, making them now 50 to 60 years old, most of these pools. They remain highly valued community assets. And I know in my discussions with the community in Kiwa Tangam, this is a very common discussion that comes up all the time. So they're highly valued assets, but the pools are deteriorating in condition, and unfortunately fewer people are using them each year. We're well below the pre-COVID levels. This aquatic strategy that's mentioned in the report, to be started soon, can look at ways to not only save money by reducing the operational costs, but also lessen the environmental impact, like using more solar power. Also, I want to acknowledge the work of council staff for their diligent work in negotiating this contract extension and introducing cost-saving measures through operational efficiencies and adjusted opening hours. This contract extension is the right move while we plan what's best for the future. I commend the motion to the chamber.
Thank you, councillor Burke. Councillor Harvey, would you like to speak as seconder?
Yes, briefly. I think the community is going to have to realize that these pools are nearing the end of their useful life, and the council is going to have to think very hard about what we're going to do with the future. And as Councillor Burke said, these pools were built 50 and 60 years ago, and the rules and regulations were nowhere near as strict as they are now. What was it? How many? 45 different things we had to go.
35.
35, not as bad. 35 different rules, regulations, acts of parliament, etc. For example, if you only have one person in the pool, I believe you have to have 2 lifeguards. And pools are not being used as much as they once were, whether that's the fact that they're aging or people just aren't involved in swimming like they used to be. So I commend the recommendation to the council. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Harvey. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Shepherd.
It is a huge expense to extend this for another year, and I'm always in a dilemma about our pools because I really think they're a very important community asset, especially with climate change, with our hotter summers. People need places to get out of the heat, and unless you've got a river or creek, and sometimes they're not running anyway in the summer, that's sort of what people can rely on, that there'll be a pool open. And I googled the Victorian Life Saving report for last year, and there were 54 fatal drowning incidents across Victoria and 132 non-fatal drowning. That was record number of fatal drownings. And the 15 to 24-year-old age group experienced the largest increase in drownings. So we've also got some responsibility in especially in regional, rural areas where we don't necessarily have natural places for people to learn to swim, in having people kids having access to swimming lessons, and so that we can, lessen these figures. They're getting bigger. So to some extent, I think it's a really big advocacy item. Like, we cannot, as we've talked about with the ageing pools, there's five pools. It's really, as you can see, how expensive it is for us to run these. We really seek assistance from the federal government or state government in ensuring that these pools stay open, because it's part of their strategic goals as well, to lower the drownings and to cover our climate, to mitigate for climate change. So, yeah, I just want to push for advocacy in this area.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Dowsley?
Thank you. Yeah, I'd just like to reiterate Councillor Shepherd's comments. I mean, not only are there benefits in terms of water safety, but also just in terms of the social cohesion that these pools bring to our communities. They're a real place of gathering, particularly after school and on the weekends. There's many young families there, new families to towns, meeting people and making connections. They're a huge asset for our community. But having said that, as a small rural shire, it's not sustainable to maintain 5 pools without support from state and federal government. So we need to continue the advocacy that we're already doing. And at the same time, I really look forward to the aquatic strategy in terms of perhaps helping us with that advocacy and giving us a path for a way forward.
Thank you, Councillor Dowsley. Councillor Horn?
The other demographic for which swimming pools are very, very important is our ageing community. We have a very hectic group of people in Rutherglen who get up at some ungodly hour of the morning and go swimming. And I know that they not only enjoy the social aspects of it, but the health-giving aspects of it. And they're moving more and more towards wanting heated pools for therapy and well-being as well. So there are lots of considerations, and yeah, it's an important thing for us to look at very thoroughly.
I'd just like to make a few comments. Firstly, about the costing. When you go to page 402 of the briefing agenda, it talks about, at the time of the 2021-22 contract execution, Indigo Shire Council and Belgravia agreed to the following annual pricing. In 2021-22, it was $431,000. In year 2, which is 22-23, it was $444,000. And in 23-24, it was $457,000. Now, tonight, we are being asked to enter into a contract extension that the cost is $747,000. These are some of the things that we're talking about when we make the commentary that we did in adopting the draft budget. These are costs that are a real imposition on small rural councils for the same service that we were providing just a few years ago with the same tired assets. And I think that it's a conversation that we're having almost in parallel to our communities, because while they might ask for longer opening hours and an extended season, the conversation that is being had by small rural councils like us is how we can further and further constrain the service that we provide. And the reason that we have to have that discussion is because there is no direction from federal and state governments. We need federal and state direction about whether they want to see pools continue to exist in small towns. They will continue to exist in major cities and in bigger regional centres, but we need direction to rural areas. Would they like to see sometimes what is the only recreational offering in small towns continue or not? And that needs to be a policy position of theirs, because we can talk about it at an operational level, but that's why we continue to have that discussion. It's an advocacy item for every council that I'm aware of. It's an advocacy item for the MAV, for Rural Councils Victoria. It's a massive discussion point for every time financial sustainability is raised. We need to continue to have the discussion because, as we say, it's very important that our communities learn to swim, have access to cool spaces in terms of the incoming climate crisis, and also for our elderly community as they age in the community to be able to have an opportunity to swim is really important to everything that our communities are about. Lots of our community pools were built by our community, and we want to be able to keep them. So it's up to the federal and state government to provide us with that direction. Would any other councillor like to make a comment? If not, I will go back to Councillor Burke as the mover. Would you like to sum up?
Thanks, Mayor Price. I was just thinking, just then I hadn't made any notes about this, but since 21-22, the cost of the pools have gone up something like 71% in that time. And whilst I can't recall specifically what the rates have gone up, but it's probably more like 20% or 25%, if that. So something else is not being spent on because of this. We have to make decisions on that. And the other thing that I remember is as a teenager with my three brothers and my mother, she would take us down to the Coburg pool every afternoon after school, and we'd be there every day. Even on the weekends we'd go there because that was our fun. That was our activity. That's what we did. We met our friends and we did all that. That's just not what happens. That's not what the community does now. So I think we have to be really aware of what's the changes are in the community, but capturing as much of the great things about having pools, catch as much of that as we can. So in summary, this is a one-year extension with Belgravia. It's a practical, cost-effective step while we plan for the long-term future of our ageing but valued pools. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 13 is infrastructure services and item 13.1 is the capital works report. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council notes the April 2025 capital works report and year-to-date progress in the delivery of the capital works program with figures not available for the full month. Can I have somebody to move that? Moved Councillor Shepherd, seconded Councillor Burke. Councillor Shepherd?
Yes, so overall the program is going well with 83% of the QT budget now delivered. With 2 months remaining, oh, it sounds tight, doesn't it? Procurement's been completed and contracts have been awarded for the majority of the remaining projects. However, there's a risk that several may not commence until June due to delays with securing supplies, particularly steel work and roofing items. With approximately 2.5 million of expenditure to be delivered in around 2 months, the capital program still has a lot of activity to come for us to meet our target, but staff will be working with contracting partners to try and complete those projects.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Burke, would you like to speak as the seconder?
Thank you, Mayor Price. Just a couple of things. I've seen the report that there are ongoing supply chain delays affecting some final project deliveries, and that's for mainly steelwork and roofing materials. And I think this is an issue that we have to be aware of, that these delays are impacting most of the construction industry at the moment, like all construction industry. So we're certainly not immune from the wider supply chain delays that can happen, that are happening right across Australia. On another point, on the completed projects, it was great to drive down Gentle Road in Tangambalanga to see the new extension of Gentle Road. The ceiling works are all complete now and keeps the dust down to a minimum, which is great. And I note that we got the nice new federal government sign up there, just where we have to show the part funding, to acknowledge the part funding from that. But that was probably the biggest sign on Gentle Road at the moment. So that's where we are. Anyway, I commend the motion to the chamber.
Thank you, councillor Burke. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? If not, I will go back to councillor Shepherd. Would you like to sum up? If not, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14 is executive management and item 14.1 is the review of councillor gift and hospitality policy. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council 1 endorses the attached draft councillor gift and hospitality policy for public exhibition for a period of 30 days from May the 14th to the 13th of June 2025, and 2 notes that the policy will return to the 29th of July 2025 council meeting for adoption. Can I have somebody to move that? Moved councillor Dowsley, seconded councillor Harvey. Councillor Dowsley?
Sure, this is a policy that is already in place. It's just a review of that policy with some minor amendments, and this is putting that out for public exhibition for 30 days. It's pretty self-explanatory, really.
Thank you, councillor Dowsley. Councillor Harvey?
I just think it's important the community understands, all about whether we can accept gifts or gratuities or anything like that. And it's very important that it be put out there so the community can see, how honest we are. Thank you.
Would any other councillor like to make a comment? Councillor Shepherd?
We do have problems really when we go out as councillors to open things and close things, and are we allowed to eat the dinner without declaring it? Are we allowed to take that bottle of wine that looks really nice that's just been handed to us? And this, we had quite a discussion about this, didn't we, really? We were working out cups of tea and everything. So the whole idea of it is, of course, we can't look to be taking it to be influenced by anyone around our decisions. So we need to maintain a gift register, and if we do get gifts that we can't say no to because it'd be just totally inappropriate to in front of everybody to just say, we can't take this, thanks. Then the gift, we have to hand it into council and it has to be in a gift register. And at any other time, we really ask to refuse beforehand to say, look, we can't accept gifts if that's fine. So that's really the main reason for this being done. And again, from our wonderful 2020 Local Government Act legislation, a new document for us to have to explain things to us as councillors and to the community.
Thank you, councillor Shepherd. I'd just like to reflect some of the comments in the report that this policy reflects best practice, advice and model policies that have been provided by Local Government Victoria. That's always the standard that we're looking to provide, something that's consistent across the sector but reflects best practice. A councillor gift policy is one element of the integrity provisions of the Local Government Act, and it does provide a good framework for councillors to manage their personal interests while executing their public duty. As you've seen us do tonight, we have to declare conflicts of interest for things that we're involved in, but similarly, if we were to continue receiving gifts and hospitality, that may lead to more conflicts of interest, and that's why the first principle of the policy is that we would refuse, and you certainly get very good at doing that within the role, and the community do learn to appreciate exactly why you're doing that, and learn to thank you and value your contribution to their events in other ways. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? If not, I'll return to the mover. Councillor Dowsley, would you like to sum up?
Oh, just reflecting on your comments, and councillor Shepherd as well, just reiterating that we all do take this very seriously to the extent that we don't even accept cups of coffee most of the time. So, yeah, it's very important. And as you said, we want to be in the chamber making decisions. We don't want to be declaring conflicts of interest whenever possible. So we were elected to make decisions, and that's what we want to do.
Thank you, councillor Dowsley. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.2 is advisory committee minutes. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council receives the attached unconfirmed meeting minutes for the following advisory committees and endorses the Office of Recommended Actions for the Indigo Community Access Committee and the Finance Committee. Do I have somebody to move that? Moved Councillor Burke, seconded Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Burke?
Thanks, Mayor Price. I just want to specifically comment on the minutes of the Indigo Community Access Committee, which I'm on that committee. It was just to highlight the point 4E in the access issues. And the issue there was talking about the Kiewa River crossing and its importance as a key connection point. And it was noted that the current pathway presents challenges for people with limited mobility, including those using mobility aids and prams. And on that committee, we were emphasising that improving this crossing would significantly enhance safe and equitable access for all community members. Just to give a bit of context to that it's quite a thing to do now to park your car down at the bottom shop in Kiewa and then drive up to then walk up over the river around the back of the farms in front of the butter factory and then up to the top shop, have a coffee and then turn around again. And the track is getting more difficult now, especially for mobility or people with mobility issues. And it's just something that the committee highlighted and regards this as an important future project. So it's not a urgent project, but something that we'll be certainly bringing up at later dates on the Access Committee. And we believe it should remain a priority in Council's planning and infrastructure programs.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. Councillor Shepherd, would you like to speak as seconder?
I've just read in the general business of the Access Committee that there was a fatality on Racecourse Road footpath opposite the Yakandanda Hostel, someone on a motorised scooter, which I think is something we should be looking at. I think we've talked about that before, that Yakandanda with the aged care residents on one side, it can be a bit of a problem. So my sympathy to that family, but obviously that's something that will need to be discussed at the Access Committee and beyond. But how important these advisory committees are in keeping us up to date on what is important in the community around their speciality area, and I really appreciate your influence on that committee and all the other advisory committees that we have.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Landells?
Yes, along with Councillor Burke, I'm also on this committee. It comprises a pretty good spread of people across the Shire. There's representatives. There's actually a couple from there was one from Kiewa, one from Tangam, one from Kaganya, so that corner's been really well represented. I don't think we have a rep from Yak at the moment, but we have Indigo North Health's Health Promotions Officer is on this committee, and there's so she works out of Rutherglen, and we also have Beechworth people on there. We rotate the meetings around. So far, the last 4 meetings have been Yakandanda, Beechworth, Chiltern, and the next one's going to be in Tangam. And we look at things like pedestrian access, the location of disabled parking bays. We recently did a walk around the main street up Ford Street in Beechworth, looking at some of these issues. And it's important, I guess, that this committee's recommendations get fed back to the infrastructure team, so they're aware of some of the issues. Now, the issue that Councillor Shepherd mentioned near Yamaroo in Yakandanda, where somebody died from falling off their mobility scooter. They hit their head on, I believe, is a bluestone edging on a garden edge. And of course, one of the things we have in Indigo Shire, we have lots of heritage gutters and things like that become real challenges for people to navigate. When I went and had a look at this particular location, it has Racecourse Road, as everyone knows, is very steep as you come up towards High Street, and the gradient on coming at either in either direction as you that first initial 30 metres, I suppose, of Racecourse Road is extremely steep, and I think that I think it'll be like a 1 to 4 gradient or something like that, which is way outside compliance standards. So I think these are the sort of things. We're having people on this committee who are very community centric and great representatives of their community will enable them to identify things that we need to keep working on to keep everyone safe.
Thank you, Councillor Landels. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Great demonstration of the feedback that our committees can provide to us, an extra resource, arms and legs in the community to provide real examples and also feedback on how they see that working or not working in their communities. Councillor Burke, would you like to sum up?
I might just add to Councillor Landel's comments about that incident. It's amazing what you do when you can drive past something many, many times and it just looks like a pathway. But then when you get out of the car and you're walking around and you know what's happened, and then you sit there and you look at it and you go, of course that's obvious. That's not the way it should be. And that was something that I worked in the disability services industry for a couple of years, and it's only when you really put your thinking cap on about what the options are and what could happen, you really do see from another point of view. And it's not that people deliberately do this or anything like that. It's over time things have turned like that. So it's just great. The Access Committee is really good just to see, what we can do better.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. If I'll put it to the vote now. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.3 is informal meeting of councillors' records. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council accepts the attached informal meetings of councillors' records. To have somebody to move that. Moved Councillor Shepherd, seconded Councillor Horn. Councillor Shepherd, would you like to speak to the motion? Councillor Horn? No. If no one else would like to speak to the motion, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Landels? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 14.4 is the Victorian Electoral Commission 2024 election report. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council receives the Victorian Electoral Commission 2024 election report. Can I have somebody to move that? Moved Councillor Shepherd, seconded Councillor Burke. Councillor Shepherd?
So this report, it reflects our recent council elections. It covers all aspects of the election, including changes to electoral legislation brought up by the local government amendment, which received royal, oh yes, we don't need that. It provides data and explanation on processes relating to the voters' roll, communication, advertising, election office management, voting processes, results and complaints received. And statistics of note in the report is the overall voter turnout for 2024 Indigo Shire Council general election was 85.31%. This is compared to the state average turnout of 83.79%. The voter turnout at the 2020 general election for council was 86.75%. The informal voting rate recorded at the 24 Indigo Shire Council general election was 4.98%, compared with 8.14%, which was recorded at the 2020 election. So that's a fair improvement. That I think is worth noting that we had less informal votes. The VEC received 3 written complaints in relation to the election of Indigo Shire Council, and of these complaints, 1 related to the conduct of a candidate, 1 related to the VEC postal voting process, and 1 relating to the VEC privacy policy. So this is, these reports are done after every election, and they're just for us to see to be transparent and note exactly the data that was collected and how the procedure went.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Burke, would you like to speak as seconder?
No, thanks.
I think the other thing that's important to note is that that's an appropriate election, and I think if we look to federal elections and how they're conducted, state elections and globally, it's really pleasing to see that this is the process that we have, that the VEC conducts the election and that the local government electoral regulations requires the VEC to prepare a report on the conduct of the election, and that almost that there's not much misconduct to report, that it's a fairly civil process, and an appropriate process is taken place for the election. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? If not, I'll go back to Councillor Shepherd. Would you like to sum up? We'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.5 is contracts awarded under Chief Executive Officer delegation for April 25. There were no contracts awarded by the CEO under delegation between the values of 250,000 and 500,000 for the month of April 25. Item 15 is notices of motion, and there are none. Item 16 is councillor's report. Would any councillor like to make a report to the meeting? Councillor Harvey?
Big boys. On Wednesday, April the 30th, the CEO and I attended the Victorian Police 2025 Neighborhood Policing Forum in Wodonga. It was a very interesting forum and went over for over 2 hours. They're dealing with all sorts of things, robbery, those powered bicycles, you know, electric bicycles, people getting knocked down. One thing that bothered me in particular was the dramatic increase in domestic violence, particularly in the larger centers like Wodonga. Beechworth got on relatively easily in that area. And the other thing that we have to be aware of is the police readily admit that they don't have the resources they need, and they don't like to get them anytime soon. So they're doing their very best with what they have. Okay, and the other report I have is on Friday, May the 9th, last Friday, I attended the local safety committee meeting in Rutherglen along with Councillor Horn. And it was just a general, basically chat about all things like Barclay Street, the sign, trying to get a proper crossing outside the Beechworth Secondary College on the main road, and that seems to be an impossibility at the moment. I don't know whether it's I think perhaps Vic Rhodes is making an excuse because they don't want to spend the money. You know, well, with the high school in particular, the secondary college, they say, well, the crossing has to be on Cemetery Road. Now, if you know Beechworth, Cemetery Road is not exactly a main thoroughfare. The children cross the main road, you know, the road that goes up towards the children in Wodonga. And but it seems like we come up against a brick wall with that one. And I think, you know, I think it was a good meeting, a very informative meeting, and people just honestly discuss things, and the police do their best to, fulfill what they've been asked. There is one thing, the CCTV cameras, they've spent the $10,000, I believe, and they're supposed to be up and running. And they're portable, aren't they? They get moved around. Is that correct, Trevor?
That question. Initially, the portable ones are quite expensive. So the resolution of council some year ago was to buy some cameras for the police themselves, and they declined to accept those. So they recommended we install them at a couple of fixed locations. I think one was in Beechworth, one was in Rutherglen. We're in the process now of installing those cameras.
So they're fixed cameras. They also recommended that people who have their own security cameras make it available to the police if necessary, keeping in mind that there are privacy laws. Like you can't photograph your neighbor's backyard, but you can what's in front of you or your own house. In other words, these meetings have become very useful and we have achieved a few things. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Would any other councillor like to make a report to the meeting? Councillor Horn?
Yes, I'd like to report some very happy news in Rutherglen. The old Glenview building has been sold to a gentleman from Sydney. And I can't give you details of the plans other than to say that the building will not be pulled down. And there's some very interesting ideas for what can go into that place to repurpose it for really highly needed things in the community. And the best part of this news is that then it will allow for the extra rooms that are needed at the new Glenview to be built. So it's very good news all the way around. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Horn. Would any other councillor like to make a report to the meeting? No? If not, we'll go on to item 16.2, the Mayor's Diary for April 2025. It's there for information. Item 17 is the Decisions Register, again, for information that outlines the actions from council resolutions, including those not previously listed as completed. Item 18 is general business. Do we have any general business for the council meeting? Councillor Horn?
Can we please have an update on this road and traffic situation in Main Street, Rutherglen, please?
CEO?
Thank you, Councillor Horn, for the question. Through you, Mayor Price. So the Department of Transport, some 3-4 weeks ago, 5-6 weeks ago, released details of their proposed safety works in Main Street, Rutherglen. So that's been made public, put on their website and so on. A number of people or shopkeepers and some others had some comments to make about those plans, and those have been collated. There's been a couple of community meetings to talk through a couple of concerns that some had about the proposed works, and particularly in relation to some parking spaces and how it affects businesses in a couple of places. So my understanding is that the Department of Transport are looking hard at trying to accommodate those comments, and I believe they'll be coming back in a short while once they've been able to collate all the feedback that they've got and perhaps rejig the proposed works. They want to do that all at once, and they'll come back with some information about any revisions to those works in due course. I don't have a time frame for that, but I believe that's happening. One of the concerns that was raised specifically in time related was the King's birthday weekend, and obviously in Rutherglen it's a weekend of major events, and there was some concern about the works interfering with those events, particularly where the street is included in those events. And I think given where we are now, middle of May, I think there's virtually no chance of going out and getting works quoted and granted for those to be done before King's birthday. So I think that's all pretty clear now.
Thank you, CEO. Any other general business items? Councillor Dowsey?
Thank you. Can we please have an update on the Chiltern Athenaeum project, including an expected completion date?
CEO? Director of Infrastructure Services, Ian Allen.
Thank you for your question. I'm just looking for an email I got here last week on that subject, and I had it here. So the project manager, Jamie, reported last week, and he did communicate this with the Athenaeum Committee, that he'd been on site with the builder last Tuesday afternoon. So the builder's now back on site and estimated 3 to 4 days a week, and his estimated completion is 6 to 8 weeks. So that would be, around 5 to 7 weeks from now. So where does that put us? Toward the end of June, I guess, isn't it? So that's the best estimate that Jamie had last week when he communicated that. He has said in there that he'll be keeping really close contact. So as we go forward, I think Jamie will update me, will update the committee as that sort of progresses.
Thank you, Director. Any other general business items for the meeting, Councillor Burke?
Yes, thanks, Mayor Price. I think we're all aware of the worsening drought that's occurring across our shire and the surrounding regions. The evidence is clear: bare, dry paddocks and livestock properties where farmers are incurring significant extra costs to feed their animals with hay and pallets just to keep them alive. Just a question for CEO Trevor: is now the time for us to write to both the Victorian and federal ministers for agriculture to request drought assistance for indigo farmers? Similar support has already been provided to parts of southwest Victoria and to rural communities facing critical water shortages. It's only fair that indigo receives that same consideration.
CEO?
Yep. Thank you, Councillor Burke, and through you, Mayor Price. So you did mention this a little bit earlier today and flagged this with us. And can I encourage the source of that information to share what they can with us? And I think, just speaking for myself, but I think on behalf of everybody, I think we'd be happy to support any push for assistance for our farmers. And it'd just be useful to have a bit more information that we can use then to convey our concerns on the behalf of the people that are directly affected by the drought. So if Councillor, if you're able to access a little bit more information, then we can pass that on to, along with our advocacy, but possibly through the mayor, perhaps some mayor signed letters and so on behalf of council. I think would be the way to go there.
Yeah, okay, I can, I'll get some more information on that for you this week. Thanks, and forward to you.
Thank you. Any other general business for the council meeting? If not, then I will declare the meeting closed at 8:17 p.m. and note that the next council meeting is Monday, the 23rd of June, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. So again, ordinarily our meetings are Tuesday, as was noted earlier this year, that this meeting is Monday, the 23rd.